welcome. My name is Michelle Villagomez, and I'm the head of marketing at Engin. I will be serving as moderator for today's Careers in Cannabis HR community webinar. The Engin and NOBO teams are thrilled that you could be here with us today. A little bit of background on Engin, Careers in Cannabis. Engin is the recruitment marketing platform focused exclusively on the cannabis industry. We've helped almost 500,000 people apply to jobs in the cannabis industry across thousands of different job openings. Careers in Cannabis, our career marketplace with over 4,000 jobs posted and 190,000 active job seekers in the industry at any given time. Some background on NOBO. NOBO is a top-of-the-line medical and adult use cannabis grower, processor, and retailer across the states of Michigan, Colorado, and Illinois. And today we're joined by Lori DeCarlo and Lee Johnson-Hesson. Lori, the regional director of the Midwest, is a strategic and accomplished cannabis talent acquisition and business development executive with 8 years of experience in cannabis operations and the consulting space as well. Lori currently oversees recruitment for the NOBO corporate office and vertical operations in Colorado, Michigan, and Illinois. Lee is a dedicated and versatile HR professional with a very strong record of supporting growing teams across high pressure industries, including cannabis, of course. She is currently serving as the HR resources administrator at NOBO. I and Lori both have dubbed her the Swiss Army knife of their team. And she brings on a hands-on expertise in payroll, compliance, employee leave management, and HR operations in multi-site environments. So very, very excited to have both of you gals joining us today. And a little bit of housekeeping. Today, we are recording this session. Obviously, don't hesitate to share your ideas, questions, sound off in the Q&A and in the chat. We will certainly incorporate all of that into the conversation, and we'll leave some time toward the end of the session solely dedicated to answering some burning questions that you folks might have out there today. So without further ado, we'll kick this off. And so many, I think with the both of you gals, like I've mentioned this offline, but we've in the past held webinars that I think almost started to touch on the elephant in the room, which is this, this bridging the gap between HR and operations and how vital that is. So I'm really excited to be able to dive into that with both of you today. And I think to kick us off with an overlap for the both of you, wondering what tools and what platforms are essential in your eyes when you're setting up HR at a cannabis company, when you're just getting there and kind of feeling out what's going on.
Absolutely. I will definitely help with that. So there major tools that you need to have is typically you start with an 8-ounce glass of vodka. And then you can move. I mean, like, it depends if you're more of a dark alcohol or a lighter one. But no, all jokes aside, it's really beneficial to make sure if when you have friends in your corner, so it's kind of like phone a friend. Um, and just know that whatever you're doing, you're not doing wrong. You're just maybe not doing it yet. And so reach out if you're looking for information. You can use SHRM, you can use SIOP, you can use Employers Council. There's so many different avenues out there, but what I most have found is Google is your friend, and go through and just read and read again. But the key thing is just connect with a peer. I actually connect with a lot of different individuals in and outside of cannabis, and there's things that are very much similar. As HR in this field, I find that a lot of individuals are a little, like they use the term can curious, which is they're not really sure if this is something that they want to do, because they're not really sure where it's going to go. Is it successful? What can I do with it? Like, is it going to ruin my credentials? What I find is that this is the challenging field, and if you're in it, then you're already winning because you're doing something that a lot of people don't want to do. So, yeah.
Lori, anything to throw in the ring? I mean, I will say you've got to have some really tough skin to to play the cannabis game, and that's across the different departments that you could possibly be in. That definitely rings true.
Yeah, I would say, oh my gosh, looking back at like 2019, we had an Excel spreadsheet and we were hiring people off of that, kind of had a website, but having a cannabis friendly HRIS helps. We have had our challenges, and I believe we're on our fourth, but that cannabis component makes it tricky since we're federally illegal. But do whatever it takes. If it's a Google spreadsheet, great. If you have a working ATS that communicates with your HRIS, even better. But it's expensive, so it's startup, right? You do what you can afford in cannabis.
Yeah, and buy-in can be really tough. And as we're talking about tools, platforms, any automations that come to mind that you've found to be extra helpful as you're kind of flying the plane and putting the parts on it at the same time.
Are you talking like from an HRIS perspective or like LinkedIn?
Um, in general, like an ATS, I think in the past, some of us have talked about like Jazz HR and venture. So there's so much to poke into. I mean, I know the cost aspect of it is always over our head, but
I would say my one beef is that most of the ATS in the past that we've used, I can't text directly from that. And we're trying to meet the candidates where they are. They're not checking emails, even though they should be. So I wish something about the federal phone lines, and we can't communicate off of their platform directly via text. So it's just it's one more step, right? You're copying, pasting, and texting. So that would be my big ask.
yeah, and I mean, especially when you think about the retail perspective, so many folks looking to get into different roles are probably working some odd hours. Dispensaries can be open anytime, from 8 a.m. to like 10 or 11, depending on like local legislation. So those times make for an interesting edge angle, if we will, when it comes to hiring in this space specifically. Beautiful. And this is for the both of you really, how do you prioritize between compliance, recruiting, onboarding, and the employee experience? I know each of those is its own beast.
For myself, you need to, if you are the one and done person, so if you're the HR of one, which a lot of cannabis companies do have, is that you're the multitasker, the multi-hatter. You may maybe spend Mondays over in the cultivation helping trim, and then on Tuesday you're processing payroll. So with all that said and done, is to make sure that if you do have a counterpart, is that there's that streamlined communication. Lori and I, we talk, even though we're in different states, we talk greatly. And it's really just making sure that we're understanding what's currently going on and we have that level of communication. I will make sure that I also gatekeep for her, and she does the same for me. So it's, like it's no, you need to go this way. And then I'm like, no, you need to go back this way. And so we're helping really direct that. When it comes to like onboarding, key thing is you, depending if you have an HRIS system or not. When I first started in cannabis, we did not have an HRIS system. So the onboarding was a Word document. I remember starting with a checklist that I created, which was make sure I don't forget to say this and make sure I do this, because nothing was really allowed. Not to mention, we just didn't have a lot of money. And so it definitely did not go towards HR, if we did have money. So with that being said, is you make the onboarding experience with what you want your company to be. So if you have a fun-loving culture, then make it fun-loving. If you are just starting up and maybe you're only doing cultivation and maybe genetics, then do something that is more formed towards your group of people. So that is one key thing that I will definitely say is go out and make it based off of what you want your culture and your team to be, because that's where it all starts.
Fully, fully agree with that. As you were talking, I got flashbacks of my own days where there was no HR infrastructure at the team I was with, and just like all of the Google Drive. messy desk that only I understood, but if someone else were to have come in and been like, what is going on?
It's organized chaos.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Beautiful.
And compliance touches everything, right? It's at the core of everything we do. So cannabis, it's lots of parallel paths. They're all important.
Yeah, and while we're on kind of that buzzword, I think it's interesting to see every market tackling this this beast on its own because there's so much that goes into it. Any any immediate thoughts on what that journey has been like for you gals since you've got a few states under your belt and I'm sure each, bring their own set of forks in the road.
Or compliance on, it's very interesting because HR will delve into a lot of different divisions within the cannabis industry. So we have just the normal labor relations, make sure they're eating, make sure we don't steal their breaks, make sure we're paying them right. So there's all those. But on top of it, we also need to make sure that we have almost like a finger in their personal life, which is make sure, if they change their address, it's super important because we need to make sure their address is changed on facility sides and on licensure sides. So it's that much more important to keep track of it. The joke that I have with a lot of the employees is, please call me if you go to jail. And it's not because I'm going to be here to help bail you out. It's because I need to know whether this is going to if this is going to attach to our license, if you're going to not be able to keep yours. So I may not be that first call, but I should be their second. And so it's kind of a standing like I will be here to make sure I put you in for PTO and then also check on your license to make sure you're able to keep it. So they kind of get a tickle out of it, but on a serious note, it's the same thing. I mean, we have to be on the professional side and then also on the personal side. Also, when it comes down to compliance, I'm looking at even for licensure of facilities, it'll come into play with, what type of employees we have at that particular location. It's so much different than, for instance, like staffing a grocery store or staffing a restaurant. It's going to look at, like what is the community in that particular area? What I would have in one location, I would definitely not have in another location. And so, and we need to make sure that every single employee understands the licensure, the compliance that follows with everything, because each one is responsible for holding our license and holding their license. So if they mess up along the way, they're responsible for everybody's jobs. So that's a very different as opposed to, oh, I work at a grocery store. Okay, well, if you pack something wrong or if you damage something, it's completely different, or if you remove a label, it's completely different in a cannabis industry.
Since we're on it, I think this is actually a great segue. But Lee, Lori, what are some of the biggest risks you think companies overlook when it comes to compliance? So employee leave or just documentation in general, since you kind of started to touch on that a little bit already.
Yeah. Biggest things companies overlook. There's so many. I'm sorry, but there's
Keep
what?
keep those badges current.
Yeah.
That's a shocker to me how many don't.
Yeah. There, there's so many. I'm trying to think like the top dogs of them all is really going to be making sure that the employees that you're bringing in are employees that you're willing to vet your license against.
Mm.
I have seen unfortunate instances where there's been a secret shopper come in, or a fake ID or anything like that, and it can turn. I mean, you're not just disrupting operations, but you're stopping productivity from that moment on. Whether it's cultivation or in a retail facility, it can stop everything, and everything is on the line by one person. And so it's super important to have that communication, to have the understanding, having clear processes and procedures to make sure that everybody is aware of the what they hold, like which part of the bridge that they're holding. Because if one person's out, the whole thing can tumble.
Yeah.
It's interesting in the interview process, I try and vet that out. And if they get jokey about certain things, like, no, this is a serious business. Sure, we all love cannabis, but we're not here to talk about consumption. Like, we're selling it,
Yeah.
we're producing it. But yeah, if you get like a bad vibe, like we have to take it really serious. Like we have fun, but we have
Lori, I actually think you created a great segue because I had some thoughts and some questions around recruitment in a really like a highly regulated industry. It's not the same. It's not the same. The playing field, the game itself of recruitment in the space is so different. And you started to touch on this, but what's your approach to finding and vetting talent with all of those things in mind?
It's interesting because, gosh, when did Colorado go rec? Like 2012? Some of the markets have been adult use for 13 years, anywhere from like 5 to 13 years. So the talent pool is there, but you can still go out of like cannabis industry and look at other markets, and a lot of like highly regulated industries. Those folks do well in cannabis. They're already used to it, right? Like beverage, tobacco, the hemp space, it's adjacent. Some of the healthcare positions. But I think the talent pool is pretty great within cannabis. I prefer cannabis experience, good cannabis experience if I can find it. Of course, some of those folks come with bad training, just like any other industry. But I think it's hard to primarily train some of the managers on the cannabis bent. It's a pretty hard business model. It works. In the beginning, it was only transferable industries and skills, but now we have a pretty good deep cannabis pool of talent.
Are there any roles that you find are the hardest to fill? You just mentioned management, and that's certainly like being able to coach those folks can be tough, but any roles that you find are like harder to fill or that maybe you take a little bit more time on because it needs a little bit more time in vetting?
Accounting and HR. Every
Mm.
time I get that, I'm like, no, 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 no accounting. And it's interesting. It's a few reasons. Um, Accountants don't want to lose their credentials. They have a pretty conservative peer base. Accountants are retiring at mock speed. I've talked to so many folks at conferences like, why aren't people applying for accountant, senior accountant, controller? They're retiring. They're not going to school for it. They're afraid they'll lose their credentials. Even though when this federally legalizes, I think they can name their job, get a couple of years in it. When big industry comes in and takes over, they're going to pad the roles. And HR as well, because as you can see, we're a team of two and we're going into our fourth state. So HR managers are pretty overwhelmed with all that cannabis requires. We don't always have the big budget to stack the accounting or HR team. So it's several variables. Some of it's comp, some of they're more conservative roles. But again, when it's part of my pitch is when this federally legalizes, you can name your job. You have a couple of
Yep.
years federally illegal cannabis. Look at what will happen when we hope it's not big pharma, but if big pharma comes in and takes over, they're going to pad the deck with an HR team and an accounting team. So, but they're hard to fill.
I don't know that that's been mentioned in the past, but you are so right. That's so on the nose. Lori?
Yes.
Oh, Lori. I'm Lee. Am I really
Oh,
swapping the names again? Oh
no,
man.
it's okay. We're L and L, Laverne
You
and
are
Shirley, but it's totally
you're
fine.
Eleanor.
L and L. Yeah. So I'm gonna say when I was first looking, so and I remember sometimes it's a little interesting because you're like looking for an HR manager for a growing company. It's so vague, and you're you're like, what? Like, what company is this? And I remember looking at it and I was like, what kind of name is this? And so it was very like covert, like
Hmm.
what is this? And I remember talking to some friends, HR friends, and they're just like, oh no, that's probably cannabis field, or like it's weed. They didn't say cannabis, nobody said cannabis. That's weed. And I was like, weed? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like marijuana. And I was just like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, they need HR too. I was like, they definitely need HR. I feel like if that's one industry that needs it, it's definitely the industry that needs it. And so I remember getting into it. And once I was finally in the cannabis, I was like, these are my people. I feel this because I'm not the typical HR. Obviously, you can tell. These are my people. I can jive with them. I totally get it. One thing that got me is because I'm also a veteran. And so when I was looking to use certain benefits, I was not able to use certain benefits for my veterans, like my veterans disability, because of the industry that I worked in. So I had benefits, but they're like, you cannot have them if you're in this industry. So there's parameters on certain things that we can and cannot do. Even when it came down for certain things with SHRM and Employers Council, they're like, oh, you're in the cannabis industry. So, and it was just like almost like a gray cloud that was placed over. Now, um, now it's interesting because I have a lot of individuals who are like, how do I get into cannabis? How do I, like, what do I need to do? How many hours do I need to have? What kind of credentials do I need to have? What experience? And I was like, well, one of the key things is you need to understand the cannabis industry. Is that, the grow is the beating heart. And so, and it adapts from there. But if you don't have kind of like a wonky personality, and you know who you are out there, I'm just kind of like if you can't jive, then it makes things a little awkward. Yes, it's still a business, but you got to have like it's kind of like you have a little sugar and spice, with your day to day. And I usually tell, which Lori has heard me, I call them the guys, the boys, which is the CEO, and the COO is, no, I need you to behave or I'm going to throat punch you. It's not, it's a loving aspect, but we all kind of understand our weirdness. And I think that's what makes us even better, than the norms. So yeah.
Weirdly enough, I think maybe we can apply the messy desk concept to the industry as a whole, right? Like from the
Yeah.
outside looking in, there's a lot of chaos. There's no way around that.
No.
But it moves in a specific way, and if you get it, you get it, and if you don't, it just looks crazy. But it keeps moving, it keeps evolving. And we're
Yeah.
just kind of along for the ride. Um, I want to get into talking about what I see as like the meat and potatoes here. And that's the HR and operations partnership. Because I think I do see this as an elephant in the room. It's there and you're either leveraging that and you fully get it or you're not. And maybe that's what's making a difference in, where you're falling short as an HR team. So I'll start with how closely should HR partner with retail, cultivation, operations, and other leaders in your team?
Not so many words, you should be in the same bed.
Yeah,
No.
what they suits versus roots. Like we can all
Mm.
hang out together. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid. But yes, they have this intimacy that develops almost like a family, right? In the dispensary or in the grow facility. And we're not there to disturb it. We're an extension of it.
Yeah. I'm just going to say a lot of the times, and again, for specifically HR, it's been a long time where we did not have a seat at the table. We have a seat at the table. Um, I like that. You need to be attached at the hip. Yeah, that's a good body part to use. I would think, it's just what I have found is that it's like the left hand not talking to the right hand. And what I have found is that every single time that even to this day, operations makes the decision and they think it's not going to affect HR or they think it's not going to affect the admin side or whatever, however they want to call it. And then they go for it and they do it. And guess what happens? Well, why didn't you tell me? Because something's hitting the fan. what, somebody's upset, we're out of compliance somewhere. And it's like, well, Lee, what do you have to say about it? I'd be like, well, I'm going to tell you, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you involve me from the very beginning? Because we could have changed this entire direction of where we were going. And it's usually a few aha moments and I told you so's, and do it again and see what happens. And, I mean, it can be very frustrating, but eventually I'm going to say you almost have like a come to Jesus moment and you're like, look, I need to understand what you're doing. And even if you have to force yourself in those conversations, I have had to do that. I'm like, excuse me, what are you talking about in here?
Yeah.
And I work my way in and they're like, oh no, well, we're just talking about some operations. Well, I'm not in here. You're not talking about anything, and I have, I have strategic seats at the table, but you need to be in when you think you don't need to be part of it. Like, I'm just going to tell you, I hate being part of marketing. I love marketing to death, but I do still need to be part of marketing. I need to understand if there's any type of policies, procedures, but when it comes to operations, you've got to be in there. You got to force yourself in there. Sorry, I'm getting ready to yell at these employees, but yeah, you, you got to be in there. So, and this is a prime example. I'm currently doing, I call it the Tour de Lee. I'm currently up here in Michigan, from Colorado, and I'm at all of our locations. One of my first stops was at a location that operations, it says, is doing great. There's nothing they need here. They're doing wonderful. I get up there and it's an entirely different conversation. We're like the redheaded stepchildren. Nobody gives us anything. We're short on flour. Where's our deliveries? And I'm like, I thought we were doing great. And so I bring that information down. That's like, well, no, they never said this. And so there's that disconnect. And it's the same thing that happens between HR or, administration and operations, is that disconnect. And it's like, nope, this is why we all just need to be part of the conversation. So yes, Felipe, I'm the first sergeant to that commander, top dog.
Well, I will say, Lee, you answered a question that I was going to follow up with, and that was going to be, what's an example of HR directly impacting business performance? But I mean, to a T, I think you tackled that, and gave like just such a prime real time example, which is super
Yeah.
helpful. And we talked about this at the beginning, but I do want to talk about what either or both of you see as like some key ways to getting leadership buy-in for HR initiatives.
Well,
Yeah.
communication, right? Communication, period. And there's so much behind the scenes that HR does. I don't know how Lee sleeps, that no one has any idea about,
Yeah.
but are critical to opening up a new location or with licensure, you name it. I mean, HR literally touches everything.
So my major is in industrial organizational psychology. So one of the things I know, whoop, whoop, I know for all you're just like, what? She said what? Like, she has a disease. I think she said, but it's primarily the way to get, because operations has a very analytical mind, right? How do we go? How do we keep moving? How are we making profit? Now, HR does too, but we're thinking more on typically the emotional side and compliance. And so where I find a nice little in between is I scare the hell out of them. All right. And so, and I have to give them the unconscious bias part of things. So if you know, with unconscious bias, I give them an example in regards to, okay, something as simple as time off. Okay. They're like, well, Lee, what are we doing? We have so many people who are calling in. Okay. Well, I know it just, I understand, but why are they calling in? Oh, well, they said they're sick again, and typically that's usually what it is, or, oh, we just can't rely on them, something like that. And it's like, well, let's look at it operationally, why this is the case. Why is it always this employee who works the morning shift? Okay. Who works with these particular employees? So like, let's really back it up. And so it sounds, and I'm like, okay, let's, we deep dive it a little bit more. And they're just like, I don't want to get into the emotional side of this. Like, I don't want to get into employee. I was like, well, this is exactly why you have a attendance problem. You just take an extra couple minutes and remove your unconscious bias that, oh, they're not showing up because they're a single mom who has to raise two kids, because they're a college student and they're too busy getting high on the weekend and they don't want to come in on Monday. I remove that and say, guess what? Your college student who is you think who's too busy getting high on the weekend actually has another job. Okay. And so if we were to look at their schedule, then we would see that, okay, well, maybe we need to accommodate or maybe help them and understand that, hey, I understand you have another job. So how about we move you to a later shift that day so you can still go to school, but then come into work? Maybe the single mom, maybe we need to make sure that she comes in a little bit later so she can drop her kids off at school. And so it's just little things like that that we can just tweak. We just turn the dial just a little bit and say, guess what? They're not a crappy employee. They just need a little understanding and assistance. And then you need to kind of open your brain a little bit and understand that they're not all trying to, to out to get us. Now, of course, there's a few, right? There's those bad apples, right? You're just like, they're just here as their first job, or maybe it's their second or their 15th, who knows? But, that comes down to our onboarding and our hiring, setting your expectations. So yeah, that's the key thing is I scare them and I'm like, you know, think about think about the human being that's behind that name tag and that badge card. And you tend to do things all, so much better. Um, but yeah, it's definitely interesting when you get them to slow their brains down. Yeah, they're big babies.
Lot to say. Lori, I see you smiling. I don't know if you have something to
Puts the human and human
add.
resources, right?
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
they're big babies. They don't know what they're doing.
I think it's one of those like we know, so we'll help you get there. But that's why I'm here. Like where would you be without, you know,
Yeah.
the
And,
HR
and
team?
helping
Because you're in the back end, like I told you so. Like,
Yeah.
dang.
and helping them retain an employee versus turning one over is better for everyone. So
Yes. Yes.
To kind of flip this, the human element is so important, but to flip it, how do you bring those insights through numbers to the ops table? So turnover data, engagement signals, like how do you bring that to the table? Because it both matter so much.
That's where it gets fun. So I'm a huge data person. I love statistics. So I have actually been keeping my own records for certain indications. It's like doing a test, right? So you tweak it a little bit and you see how it reacts. Tweak it a little bit more and see how it reacts. And so I'm doing the same thing when it comes down to, for instance, job descriptions, right? So you have this boring old job descriptions. We're looking for a fun, fantastic, you can fill it in, right? Wholehearted, whatever it may be. You have the typical ones. Are you looking for a dynamic career? Like it's those. Change it up a little bit, make it a little bit different, and see what type of applicants we get, how quick we get them in. We test it against when we post it. So typically the best times to post, because again, for on a statistical side, is you post them on Friday because people have what? They have Rage Fridays. They're going to rage apply. I'm done with this job. I'm finished with you. I'm out. Okay. I'm not going to be back here on Monday. Well, then you have the ones that are on Sunday, like, crap, I haven't got another job from Friday and I got to go back on Monday. So then we posted it again. So typically you have a Friday post and you have a Tuesday post because let's just face it, they had to go back to work. So, and you see the dynamics between those two, and you have different job postings for each of those timeframes. Nobody likes writing job descriptions and job postings, especially myself. But the difference that you get from a Friday post to a Tuesday post really changes your stats. You can bring that information over, and it also brings and shows what type of employees that you'll get in the future. So if you're looking for those those dynamic ones, those fun-loving ones, you're going to get those on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays. If you're wanting the ones that are like, I just need a quick fill, you're going to get those on Friday. And it's all, I hate it, but it's all stats. So it's really, really interesting. And I do the same thing on the operations side. Well, let's change our PTO policy. Let's look at doing this. Well, let's take away this and see what happens. Let's try this. We tweak it just a little bit and see how that works. Now, the biggest problem is waiting to see how it works. That's the biggest problem because people want instant satisfaction. And I'm like, they're not going to get it. Okay, I need you to pay. I need you to be patient. Keep, sit on your hands. But it typically takes anywhere from, depending on what you're doing, a week, and it can take up to a month to see a change in those little tweaks that you're making. So you, as the professional, have to understand: can I make this tweak in a week, or can I make this tweak in a month? But you also need to communicate how long it's going to more than likely take, and then you show them that data. This didn't work, so we know not to do that again. This is what's working, or this is not working. I'm not afraid to be like, nope, it didn't work. I dropped the ball on that one. Let's try this. Because I'm human and I'm not sure what's going to work in a certain area or not. So that's how you can bring that information to the table and show them. But you got to make sure that you're organized with the information. So I know we talk about the cluttered desk, but you got to be organized with the information to be able to show them, this is what we had, this is where we're currently at, and this is what I'm projecting. I love statistics, if you can't tell.
We love that you love statistics. You've got actually the engine team on Telegram chiming in saying that they're stoked that you mentioned your IO. Our operations guy is especially excited because that's what he got his master's in. So he's like,
nice. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So we love that you love the stats. At the end of the day, the stats are always there, whether you want to use them or not is on you. And I say that to other people in the cannabis space. Like, those numbers matter. It's up to you to take it upon yourself to figure out how to leverage it. They don't go away, even if you are like, I don't see it. It's like, well, they see you.
Yeah. Be like, I'm gonna ninja throw a 7 at you.
Yeah, like it sees you whether you like it or not. I want to take us into
Tuesdays for LinkedIn are also big days for any kind of a post. And that's a marketing fact. I don't know why, but there's something about a Tuesday. If you're going to do any kind of a post, do it on a Tuesday.
I actually kick off my content calendar on Tuesdays. So the creative director and I will do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday postings. Monday, Friday, if it's something holiday related, but you're so right. Tuesday tends to be a sweet spot. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to get us into talking about, and we started unpacking a little bit, but talking about like Midwest specific trends and things that you're seeing. I know we talked about a badging process and staying up to date being super important. Any other hiring or like workforce patterns that you think are unique to the Midwest and how you're tackling it?
I actually think there's a lot of people specifically in Illinois leaving the industry, and it makes me sad. I think there's a lot of burnout going on, but I do think those folks will come back. They're leaving. They're like, they were part of either AU. Most of them actually medical around here in Illinois have left, but I think they'll come back if it federally legalizes. Yeah, also the training. Michigan doesn't demand any training or badging, and that's shocking to me. Illinois does, Colorado does. I think it's a missed market for Michigan, but I think that a little fun fact. We actually we use Seed Talent, little plug for Seed Talent team for our mandated bud tender training in Illinois. We've brought that into Michigan. We don't have to, the state's not enforcing it, but we like it as a tool, and it's a good accompaniment to our managers who are also training the staff.
To kind of keep that going, any regulations or things that stick out to you across the states that you're in?
I will tell you, we've had to adjust our hours. Some municipalities are weird about being open until 9, which I found like a little shocking. So, and training, some municipalities in your business plan will mandate that you do additional training, or the township has specific training they want thrown in there.
Yeah. I remember in my hometown, San Jose, California. Shout out to California. I think for us, the local legislation capped it at 9 p.m. for dispensaries as well. I do remember that being the case. I don't know that we had anything in place for how early we could open, but certainly how late we could be open, which was interesting. And I do want to bring it to something lighthearted to kind of close that section out. But how does NOBO, how do you and your team, like how do you build community and brand awareness in those regions or in regions you're expanding into to then attract the right talent?
Man, you have to show up locally, right? You go to the farmers markets, you sponsor concerts, you have loyalty programs. Our marketing manager might be on here right now, and Rachel has like a spirit week for both customers and our bud tenders. So I think that's kind of fun, right? You're not bridging, you're bringing customers and our teams together, and just, yeah, you got to keep it fun.
I'm just going to say, I find that we can get some great talent from our customers.
Mm.
A lot of them are curious. A lot of them have, first off, we already know they partake, but a lot of them are able to speak to, and typically those are your best, right? Those are your customers are your best sellers. They're the ones who are out there like, oh my God, I go to NOBO. And, my favorite bud tender is this person. And I was actually at one of our locations in Edwardsburg, and they have little about them stickers or posters on their registers. And I think it's interesting because a lot of the customers are like, oh my God, I love that one too. And I can't roll either. And mine look like donuts. And and so they have something in common. And but it's interesting when it comes down to looking for talent. I have actually found more talent from recruiting from our own customers. So it's pretty interesting. We're like, well, if you're looking for a part-time job, we'd love to talk with you, and that's typically where it starts.
I love that and can certainly attest to that actually, and even in my own career. That's amazing. Well, I do want to open things up for folks in case you've got any burning questions that you've been holding in. Now's a great time for Lori and Lee to tackle those if anyone is so inclined.
Yeah, challenge me. Throw something out there. I love it.
Let's see.
Oh, that's a Lori one.
Lori says we get 100 plus applicants for every post. How do you filter through those candidates quickly?
Oh God, I'm so good at, like, because that's every company, right? And you might get 10% if you're lucky that are actually applicable. You just look for keywords. Like, I know I meet with my hiring managers. What are you looking for? Some of them want certain experience sets, some don't. Um, you just train your eye. I think you start with, maybe I'm just spitballing. I want 1 year of cannabis management experience, 2 years of inventory experience, or maybe I have a manager that wants to hire baristas because they make good bud tenders. So you quick skim, make your resume concise, bullet points, bullet points. I spend more time, and maybe they don't want it, but I do try and help candidates. Like, here's what I would put on your resume, because I don't think everyone knows instinctively what to put on there, but make it really easy for a recruiter to read it. Quick up and down.
Yeah.
Highlights. I did have someone hang up on me yesterday. They didn't want the resume advice. I'm like, okay, keep your 2 sentences.
Oh, that's
It was really weird. I haven't been hung up on before. I'm like, oh,
huh. I guess all right. I mean, anything in the cannabis space that can happen, I guess.
And they
Yeah.
asked for help, or I wouldn't have, sometimes I offer it, but I'm like, this is really weird. Okay.
Yeah. Um, Rita, I'm going to direct you to check out Careers in Cannabis. There is likely something popping off for you to look at there. Let's see. Matt asks, do you see any differences in HR documentation relating to the Midwest market? So they noted specifically employee handbooks.
Uh, yes. Um, let me think the best way to put this. It needs to be simpler. Um, my thing is nobody wants a wordy handbook, first off. Okay. Who wants to open up a link or get a book and it's like a textbook? Nobody, first off, you're not going to get anybody to read it. They're gonna get lost in it. Not to mention, I want the managers to use it almost as a Bible. So, and if I don't have something that's easy to read and easy to use, then nobody's going to look at it. When it comes specifically to the Midwest, I need to put it in a way or in a fashion that speaks to them. So, and I was going to say, I actually just developed our new handbook, and it's so like I'm actually super proud. I'm like gold star, Lee. Good job for you. Like, and so what I did is, I wish I could show you, but on little processes that I have, there's little paper clips by them. This little paper clip. You remember the paperclip guy on the old computers? I'm showing my age. That's
I
like ding, 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 ding. Okay. I put him in the handbook. Obviously not him directly because then I would like copyright. But either way, I put him in there. So the hold on.
Uh-oh, here she goes on the job.
Sorry, I'm yelling at them. So either way, I put a little paperclip by them so they knew exactly what to go to. They could easily find it, paperclip, in there and say, oh, this is a process. This is the process I need to find. There's some things that are highlighted yellow and then bolded. And it's like, okay, if you're going to read anything on this page, read this. And so, but I think that's for everybody, not just specifically for Midwest. But I find that the simpler the handbook, the easier and the more, like the more processes are followed. So yeah, that's what I would say for handbooks.
let's see. We've got Felipe asking, how are you navigating CBA negotiations? Now, granted, anything super heavy, I'm going to say please defer to your legal team and be
Yeah.
smart. So we can, we can kind of do a surface level, but I don't know that we'd be diving too deep into that. Believe it.
Yes. So I have worked with several different unions in and out of the cannabis. So just recently in the cannabis. But yes, I'd have to agree. Anything that you need to get with your legal team on that. However, CBA negotiations, so for those who may not be in the union or in the union industry, CBA is a collective bargaining agreement. And you would just need to make sure that one, it is mutually beneficial. Why? So the key question to ask yourself for anything that comes up is why are they bringing this to the table?
Mm.
So, and that's no different for like if you have kids or if you have a spouse, why are you bringing this to my attention? Why is it important to you? What has recently happened that has become so important? And so typically that's where you find where your answers are going to lie. Probably something has happened where somebody was recently terminated or got written up for something in regards to that particular area. And that is your key to go in there and be like, what is happening with this particular thing? So now when it's come to the table, it could be it's too late, but it also could not be. It could be something that you can easily fix and it can be adjusted and not even placed into a CBA. But usually if it's coming to the table, it's something that has been there for quite some time and it hasn't been resolved. So but yeah, I meant negotiating a new or renewal. Ugh, I'm sorry for you. I'm so sorry for you. So yeah, I know. Those are hard. Those are really, really hard. Negotiating a new CBA or a renewal, again, are going to be things in the past. But I'm just going to tell you one thing that's really worked for me is I have monthly check-ins with my unions. So, and this is way we'd hit anything before it got to that point.
Mm.
So one of the things that I worked to implement is that we would have monthly check-ins with a steward of their choice or all the stewards, and their lead person that they had there, their union person, as well as the key individuals who were in those departments. So maybe your grower, maybe your retail person. And we would go in and talk about, okay, this is what's coming up. Here's a new rule that's coming up. How are we feeling about this? How is this going to work? What is it going to look like when it implements? What are some concerns that you had? And then we resolve it right then and there before it even has to go into a CBA. So hopefully that helps.
Beautiful. We do have Jose asking, this is great. How do you approach managers who are hesitant of changing their ways, who maybe have a history of a high turnover rate?
Mm. And like an HR way, how to approach them?
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different angles to
No, I was
take.
joking. I was like, so you could just throat punch them and just get it over with. So no, honestly, what usually gets with them is you need to show them they're already going to be highly on the defense because what they do is never wrong, right? This has been working for years. And you're like, well, it hasn't, but the key thing is sometimes I have to ask, well, do you like having to keep training people? And that's, like, is that what you want to do? Is that where you want to spend your time? Because I feel like we don't want to take 20% of your time training new employees. And it's not meant to be sarcastic in any way. It's just asking them a point blank question of, are you comfortable with training? Or maybe do you feel like your training is not working? Or because the key thing is that what we're currently doing now is not working. So that's the key thing. And once you get them to admit to that, then they typically will start turning their wheels and like, okay, well then what can we do? And it's like, well, I see here that, you're going to find that information from exit surveys. So I do not hide here's my thing is I do not hide my exit surveys. If they say Lee is a mean demon, then I give it to Lee and I say, Lee, you've been told you are a mean demon. Now we can go with that as what we take it with a grain of salt, or is it like, are we constantly seeing like, oh, Lee, we got another one. Oh, you're a mean fairy. Okay. And like either way that's coming down, the commonality is that you're mean. So what do we need to do to fix this? But I don't hide my exit surveys and I don't clean them up either. I'm just going to tell you, there's a lot of HR that will do that. I'm like, let me clean it up because we know that Sarah is a little sensitive, and I'm like, no, especially in cannabis, you got to have thick skin, if not, you're going to get like a rash from the mother trees. But you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you've got to have just a little bit of, it's going to be okay. Like, this is not going to ruin your day. So, definitely just come out with it and just be like, obviously what we're doing is not working. So what can we do together to get this fixed?
Yeah. I'll take one more question and make sure everybody's heard. Lori is wondering, what's an acceptable turnover rate for retail?
Gosh, I've heard that, what is it, regular or traditional retail's 30%, cannabis is double that. I don't know what acceptable for cannabis is. Michigan, oh my goodness, there are so many dispensaries right now. I think there's a lot of jumping, but the grass is not always greener. I don't have that answer.
Well, I'm trying to get ours down to 25%. Let's just say that. So it is definitely not there. Lori's like, yeah, good luck. But I'm trying to get ours down to 25%. We are sitting much higher than that. But it's going to start with understanding what are our retailer, our bud tenders, what is it that they're looking for? Because if we hire them with the wrong expectations, if we hire them with the wrong preconceived notions, then this is why our turnover is so high. So understanding what our bud tenders are looking for is really what's going to help us understand how to get our turnover down. Now, our bud tenders could be fabulous. They could be great. I've been listening to them for a couple days now. I have some of them who are great at upselling, and I have some that are like scared of their own shadow. And I'm like, okay, well, what can we do to help that? And it's typically because they're not confident in themselves. And the other time is that they're afraid of saying the wrong thing because their manager has so much micro management style over their script that they feel that if they make one little, like, oh, I didn't brief it this, this time, and I didn't say however pot shot, like they're going to be like they're on the firing range. But it's really understanding what our bud tenders are looking for and what our customers are looking for, our clients are looking for. um so yeah, and I'm just going to tell you, I was listening to one. She is she is precious when it comes to new customers. Like the way she explains it, I was like, if I were a customer, I would want her to explain the difference between sativa and indica and a hybrid, and how I'm feeling with it is going to react, like, beautiful. And I'm like, how can I clone you, in a cannabis standpoint, but how can I clone you and put that at all the other locations? So, and I'm like, I'm going to figure that out.
He's our new trainer.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
I'm like, exactly.
Also, Lee, get out of my head. I feel like for the last 8 years, I've said that in so many, just my own capacity of like,
Yeah.
I wish I could clone myself. And maybe that's a bit narcissistic, but just like, I wish I could clone myself. And then everyone on my team has the same vision, has the same way of conveying information to folks. And then everything would just be so much easier. Um, so I fully resonated with that extra hard for sure. Well, Lori, Lee, thank you for today's conversation. The insights, simply amazing. And I'm so happy that we were able to have you on today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
A very insightful conversation. Folks, we're hosting these regularly, so we hope to see you at the next few ones, obviously. Stoked to have this community. But we encourage you to check out our socials, NOBO socials, and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're ultimately a community of HR folks that don't get, and we've said this in the conversation, we don't really have the same seat at the table as the retail sales marketing side of things does. So it's important that we're sharing ideas together and with each other. Um, so yeah, please stay, please stay connected. We will be posting this on our YouTube channel in the coming days. So feel free to head over there, subscribe, and you can always rewatch this webinar along with any of the other previous webinars that we've hosted in the past. The entire Careers in Cannabis engine and of course NOBO team thanks you for being here. I hope you have a great rest of your week.